A sock puppet became famous before the company did, and that should have been the first warning sign. By 1999, Pets.com wasn't selling pet food, it was selling a feeling. The feeling that the internet had solved logistics, that you could click a button and kibble would materialize on your doorstep. The company burned through $300 million in venture capital in under 2 years. Most of that money went to one thing, making sure everyone on Earth knew about a talking puppet. Let's rewind. February 1998. Silicon Valley was running on pure speculation and caffeine. A group of entrepreneurs decided pet supplies, the $30 billion market nobody had cracked online, was the move. They incorporated Pets.com. They hired a creative agency, and they made a choice that would define everything that followed. The sock puppet arrived in 1999. His name was Mr. Pets.com. He was orange, furry, had googly eyes, and spoke in a nasally voice that somehow made selling dog food feel like a cultural moment. The campaign worked, not because people wanted to buy pet supplies online, because everyone wanted to know who the sock puppet was. Here's where a detective's instinct kicks in. When the mascot becomes more famous than the product, you've got a problem. Not a marketing problem, a business problem, because brand recognition doesn't pay rent. It doesn't solve the fundamental math that was breaking the company apart. The math was ugly. Pets.com spent roughly $2 to acquire a customer. The average order was $50. Shipping pet food, heavy, low margin, impossible to profit on, cost them $1.50 per box. They were bleeding money on every single sale, and they knew it. But here's the thing about the late 90s. Profitability was a dirty word. Growth was all that mattered. If you could show hockey stick numbers, investors didn't ask hard questions. Pets.com went public in February 2000. The IPO raised $82.5 million. The stock opened at $11 and immediately jumped to $14. Everyone thought they'd won. They'd won for about 6 months. By summer 2000, reality started pushing back. Other pet supply sites were launching. Amazon, which already had logistics figured out, was entering the space. And Pets.com's burn rate hadn't slowed, it had accelerated. The puppet was still on TV, nobody was making money. The company tried to pivot, they cut costs, they fired staff, they stopped the puppet ads. But pivoting doesn't work when your entire business model is broken. You can't fix it by running faster. You can only survive so long on other people's money. By November 2000, the board knew it was over. The dot-com bubble was deflating. Their stock was worthless. They had maybe 2 months of runway left. On November 6, 2000, Pets.com filed for bankruptcy. The entire company, the brand, the infrastructure, the history, liquidated in weeks. But here's the twist that nobody sees coming. The puppet didn't die with the company. In 2001, a lawyer bought the sock puppet at auction for $200,000. He bought it as a joke, a reminder of how absurd it all had been. The puppet outlived the corporation. That's the real story. Not that a mascot couldn't save a company. Mascots never save companies. The real story is that $300 million in venture capital was placed behind a business model that couldn't possibly work. Everyone involved knew it. They did it anyway. The sock puppet was the distraction. It was brilliant marketing for one reason. It made you not ask the question you should have been asking. How does a company that loses money on every transaction stay in business? The answer was always, it doesn't. It just takes time to fall. Pets.com wasn't unique. It was just the clearest example. During the dot-com crash, over 500 companies folded. They all had the same problem. They were funded to scale, not to profit. They were built on the assumption that growth alone was enough. It wasn't then. It never is. The puppet went to the Smithsonian in 2010. That's not metaphorical. It's actually there. A $300 million lesson in sock form, sitting in a museum where everyone can look at it and understand what happens when you confuse marketing with business. And here's the part that still bothers me. The people who made the decision to fund Pets.com, most of them kept their money. The founders, many of them moved on to other ventures. The employees, they lost jobs. The investors who came in late, they lost everything. The puppet was the only honest thing in the whole operation. So when you see a company with a brilliant mascot and a story that makes sense and funding that seems limitless, ask yourself the detective's question. What aren't they telling you? Because if the business model requires infinite growth to avoid bankruptcy, it's not a business. It's a countdown timer. Pets, Calm is dead, but its lesson isn't. Every few years, another company with a viral mascot and a broken business model gets billions in funding. The names change. The sock puppet doesn't. It just wears different clothes. Subscribe. Each week we dissect another billion-dollar failure nobody wants to talk about.